Yeah, we are live.
Okay, so I think we are good to start. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the second session for the EM Prime program. Welcome all of you, and I welcome Dr. Shankar to this session also. Today's session is on inventive problem solving, and I will briefly introduce Dr. Shankar. So Dr. M.V. Shankar is the Vice President Technology Innovation at Mahindra and Mahindra Group and has featured in the top 50 innovative leaders by World Innovation Congress 2020. He has been a co-inventor on 10 issued US patents and 10 Indian patent applications and has coached more than 1,000 innovators. Technology innovation leader, he is passionate about facilitating technology innovations in India. Dr. Shankar excels in mentoring inventors to grow their ideas into innovations. He has more than 23 years of experience in the corporate R&D and global technology organizations like GE, Dove, Honeywell, and Cummins. With his rich experience in visioning future technologies, passion for scouting new technologies for potential business opportunities, Dr. Shankar has an excellent track record in materials innovation and new product development. He has managed global cross-functional teams to deliver technologies that are critical to business growth. Dr. Shankar is a PhD from IISc Bangalore and has a management degree from IIM Bangalore. So with this brief introduction, welcome Dr. Shankar to this session.
Thanks, Dr. Mukta. Thank you. Are you able to see my screen now?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, great. Very good evening, friends, inventors, innovators, and entrepreneurs. Very happy to be with you all here today to discuss about inventive problem solving. And this is a topic that I am very passionate about because there is no end to learning when it comes to problem solving, but to especially inventive problem solving. After dabbling with a variety of tools and techniques for many years, still I'm actively learning. Every time I do a session like this, I end up learning something new. So I'm all excited about spending the next couple of hours with you all today. So I started my career as an inventor way back nearly 2000, and I used to work for GE's global R&D. And I was trained in physics and materials. So I started with inventing a lot of new materials, mainly for lighting, to solid state lighting, LEDs application. That's how I spent the first 8 years of my career. I spent as an inventor, specifically in the area of materials. Then over the years, slowly I moved into an innovation role, where apart from inventing new materials, I also learned to work in cross-functional teams, understand how to take ideas from the lab to the market. So this was a role where I was an innovation leader for emerging markets with Honeywell. The idea there was to understand the needs of markets like India, China, and Middle East, and develop technologies and take these technologies all the way to these markets. So that was the first time I went beyond the R&D organization to work in a cross-functional team to learn what it takes to take idea from the lab to the market. This was a very intense 3-year experience where I got to see how to bridge the gap between an idea that works in the lab versus a product that really goes and sells in the market. Then I moved on to a role where I was interested in looking at what's next in terms of future technologies and planning for developing those technologies. That was a role I held at Cummins, as the Director for India Technology Planning. And from there, I moved to Mahindra as a technology leader, driving new product innovation for automotive and farm business. So currently I'm based at the Mahindra Research Valley, driving innovations in fields such as electric, autonomous, connected vehicles, and also in precision farming. These are my current areas of interest. Let's start with what is this inventive problem solving all about? That could be a good place to start the discussion, because there are so many ways of defining what is invention, what is innovation, and so on. I thought it would be good for us all to get onto the same page before we start looking at the tools and techniques. So here I have put a very simple definition for innovation, which has three dimensions to it. The one is it should create value. It should create value for the customer. Problem solving all about. That could be a good place. To create value, we need to start from an insightful idea. That's where the journey begins. And the third is, just because the idea is insightful and it creates value, it's not going to be an easy journey. There will be still many barriers as you take the idea from the lab to the market. So your ability to overcome these barriers and take the idea successfully to the market is the third important dimension. So for the purpose of the discussion today, we'll look at ideas and innovation from at least these three important dimensions of how insightful it is, how much value it can create for the customer, and what is the path to the market. These are the three important dimensions that I will try to cover during the course of the discussion. Let's start with understanding some of the challenges in this space, because we need to understand what could be the problem areas and what are the things that we should prepare ourselves for before we start the journey. One of the very first challenges that any innovator or entrepreneur would face is typically with the nature of the problem that they are working on. Okay, you could decide to work on a simple problem, which is easy to solve, or you could decide to work on a complex problem, which is little tough, but eventually you'll be able to solve it with sufficient effort and resources applied onto it. But there is a third category called the wicked problems. It's not only difficult to solve, it's even difficult to define. Okay. So these are the ones which make life very tough, but these are also the problems which are the most important to be solved, which hold the greatest opportunity. If you're able to solve, you'll be able to make the biggest impact. All these three classes of problems are equally important: the simple, the complex, and wicked. And you could decide to work in any one of these three classes of problems. As we go along, I'll give you some examples of this. But it is important for us to appreciate the difference between these three, because the way we are going to solve this problem will fundamentally be different depending on whether it's simple, complex, or wicked. So this is the first challenge we should keep in mind. The second is the technology, what we call as a technology S-curves. There's a current technology which starts in a small way, grows, picks up momentum, and after some time, it saturates. It's a plateau. Then there is no further growth in the technology. That's when a new technology comes in and replaces the current technology. So there is always a continuous change from one technology to another. It can happen over a period of 10 years or 20 years. You don't know, depending on the field, the time can change. In some fields, it can be even less than 5 years. But there is always one technology that is growing, reaching its saturation. And in parallel, there is a next technology which starts picking up and slowly replaces the current technology. And then it also eventually goes through the same path, saturates, and gives place to the next gen technology. So there is a continuous evolution of technology. So whatever space you decide to work on, you also need to keep an eye on what is happening and what could be the next technology that can replace your technology. It's very important because however great the solution we develop, it has a finite life. So we need to keep track of parallel developments in other alternative technologies to know when the new technology can possibly replace your technology. This is the second challenge that we need to keep in mind. The third, so the title is Inventive Problem Solving. So we talked about the problem. Now let us look at what is this inventive. The inventive actually comes from the world of patents, what we call as intellectual property. So if you're an entrepreneur, naturally you would like to protect your idea before taking it to the market. So to protect the idea, when you go to the patent office and say, this is my idea, I want to get a patent on it, one of the things that they would look for before they grant the patent to you is to see whether there is an inventive step in the idea that you're describing. By inventive step, what I mean is, have you really created some new knowledge? Because the new knowledge, the delta that you have created is what you can own. So the patent office would look for what is that inventive step? What is that new knowledge that you have created? And that's what they would grant you a patent for. That's what you'll be able to protect. So it becomes very important that when you come up with the idea, and when you want to put this idea in a product and take it to the market, this idea should be protected, for which possibly you need to have a patent. And to have a patent, there should be an inventive step in the idea that you're talking about. In the sense, you should have created some new knowledge, and that becomes the basis for your ability to protect your idea and also exclude others from practicing that idea. So it becomes very important for you to understand what it takes to make your idea sufficiently inventive so that you can get a patent, and thereby you can own the idea that you talk about and exclude all others. We will come to it a little later on with some practical tools and techniques to make your idea inventive. But for now, you just need to know that this is a very important criteria as we go along. Finally, inventive problem solving. We talked about the problem, we talked about the inventive part. Let's talk about the solution part also. The idea which you think is the best idea out there in the world is just the first step in this journey. However great the idea is, this is only the first step. We have to basically do a few things to make sure this idea really becomes an innovation and makes a desired impact. Towards that, the very first thing we need to do is to align the idea with the problem at hand and also the various real-life constraints that are out there so that the idea can go out and solve the problem. So you're talking about a problem, solution, couple, and also at an early stage, we need to recognize the constraints and make sure that the idea works despite the constraints. That's the alignment part. Next is the idea should be scalable, especially if it's a laboratory process. Then you need to make sure that what is the demand for a solution like this, whether your process you'll be able to scale it up to the level that meets the demand. Then we talked about the protection. Because since the idea is going out to the market, we need to make sure the idea is sufficiently protected so that nobody is able to copy or design around your idea. That becomes the basis of your advantage or strength. And finally, if you manage to do all these things, finally there is this acid test at the end, the litmus test, what we call as, does the idea really empower the user? Because you would have aligned the idea is scalable, you also would have got a patent. But if the end user doesn't feel empowered using the idea, he is not going to adapt this new idea. So it becomes very important for you to understand what are the constraints of the user and how you can use their idea to remove those constraints and empower them. So here we are talking about your ability to grow your idea all the way into an innovative solution that can empower the end user. So if these are the challenges that are at the center of inventive problem solving, is there an easy to learn and practice way to go about addressing these challenges and pursue innovative ideas? There is, and that's what I'm going to share with you today, the next few minutes, with lots of examples and also tools and techniques which you can go back to your labs and try it out on your own ideas. There are three questions I'll try to answer during the course of this discussion today. The first is, the opportunity space is pretty large. So as an innovator, as an entrepreneur, how are you going to focus on the most desirable opportunity space? This could be based on the demand in the market, depends on what you're good at, what you're passionate about. There could be many factors which decides this. But the very first thing that an innovator has to do right is to focus on the right space, the opportunity. Once you figure out a way to do that, next is how to create the space in your mind to get some fresh ideas. Because there is this lot of these old ideas which are cluttering your mind. So you need to escape from them and create some space for some fresh ideas to come in. This becomes very important for you to make sure that your idea is novel, relatively fresh, and it is also a feasible idea. So for this, you need to overcome what we call a psychological inertia, the tendency to stick to the old ideas, break away from that, and get some new ideas into the system. And the third question is, you are successful, you have solved the problem, but it is only for the current technology. How to predict what is going to be the next big wave, whether in terms of technology or market needs, and how to go on to define the next big problem that you should be solving, so that your idea is not short-lived. You are able to figure out what is the next problem to be solved and go ahead and solve that, so that innovation becomes a continuous iterative journey. So these are the three very important aspects that we'll try to cover as we go along. One is the focus part. The second is about the ideation, ability to get some fresh ideas. And the third is to predict what's next and then move on to the next big problem that we should be solving. And the framework that we'll use is a very simple framework called FLOW. FLOW is an acronym for focus, leap and orient, and what's next. The focus phase, typically we focus on the opportunities, formulate the right problems to solve. The leap and orient is the ideation phase, where you leap, means you let go the old ideas and take a leap towards the new ideas. At the same time, you also orient the new ideas such that they work within the real life constraints out there. The third part, which is what's next, in terms of how do we predict what are the next gen technologies that will be coming into our space, what are the market needs, how it's going to change over time, how do we proactively address those new needs, and how do we leverage those new technologies. That's the third part, which is what's next. So we will start with the very first thing, which is to figure out how to look at the opportunity space, zero in on the right space, and then define the problem that we should solve. There are a few skills that you need to do a good job of focusing. And these skills, I have picked up the top 5 skills. The very first is your ability to observe things around you. And having observed, you should be able to question, the sense, challenge the assumptions and say why it is this way, why it cannot be some other way. So your ability to question becomes important. That's a second skill. The third is, once you question, you may not immediately get an idea, it may take some time. So you need to incubate. Means you need to lay low, be patient, and allow the idea to mature. That's what we call as incubate. Then comes associate, which is made popular by the Steve Jobs phrase of connect the dots. So in associate, what happens? A lot of scattered pieces of information. Suddenly you'll be able to see a pattern. You'll be able to connect all of them. And that becomes the basis of the innovative idea. And this is very important. This comes with practice. Your ability to see a pattern, and then ability to connect all the individual dots. That comes with a lot of practice. But this is a very important skill for innovation. And finally, experimentation, where you should be able to design some very quick and low-cost experiments to quickly test your idea. These are popularly known as the innovator's DNA. These are the 5 skills. And I'm going to focus on the one skill, which is question. Because this is, for me, I found that this is the most important one. And I have benefited a lot by spending more time on questioning and understanding the problem better before jumping into solving it. That's the reason why I have picked up this today. Questioning is not very difficult, actually. And the questions are very simple. It's only the answers that are a bit complex. But since the questions are very simple, we can very easily go ahead and ask these questions. It's very simple, like who is affected? What exactly is the problem? When is it a problem? Where is it a problem? Why is it a problem? And how is it? Very simple, very basic questions. But the answers for these questions may change with time. It will evolve. As we gather more and more data, you'll find that the answers shift. And then you'll be able to see that you started with one problem, but over time you have shifted and you are working on a very different problem. And that's part of the journey. Don't be surprised when that happens. But it's very important for you to start by asking these 6 questions. Don't worry if you don't have answers for all this to start with. You'll eventually find the answers. And don't worry if the answers change over time. That is also a very natural process. But please remember, till you find answers for the 6 questions, you are not ready for solving it. So you need to make sure that you go around, talk to as many experts as possible, and get answers for these 6 questions to start with. So these are popularly referred to as the Kipling questions, after the famous writer Rudyard Kipling. So here is a template that I have included for you, so that whenever you start on a new project, you can use this template to find answers for these 6 questions. I have also added 3 more questions, which I found very useful, which are, who is not affected? When is it not a problem? And where is it not a problem? Think about it. When there are many people affected, there is a small group of people who have figured out some alternative solution or who have insulated themselves so that they are still not affected. So by knowing that, gives you some idea as to how this problem can be solved. And also, the problem is not always a problem. It could be a problem in summer and may not be a problem in winter. Okay, fine. So that is, when is it not a problem? Where is it not a problem? Maybe it's a problem in the city, it's not a problem in the villages. Okay, so it's a problem in a developed country, it's not a problem in underdeveloped country. Like that, there could be a variety of spatial and temporal things that will define, that will help you to segment the problem and find solutions. So it's always important to ask these 3 questions also, over and above the 6 questions that you saw. Of all the questions that you saw, the most important is the why. This why, you should not stop with just asking it once. Actually, you should ask it at least 5 times. This goes back to a poem that we all learned back at school. Now the NCERT has this in the 5th grade right now. I've seen this. Still, they have continued to include this in their books. This is about a kingdom that was lost because a nail was missing. Okay, strange. When you hear it the first time, you wonder how a kingdom can be lost because a nail was missing. Then, as you read the poem, you understand that the kingdom was lost because the battle was lost. Battle was lost because many of the soldiers, they could not fight well, and that's because they lost their horses. And why did they lose their horses? Because the horses lost their shoes, and that's because the nails were missing. So as they go through this why 5 times, suddenly you realize that the problem is with the nail that was missing. That's what caused this big problem. So if I'm the king and if I'm not aware of this nail problem, even if I have the best army, the best horses, whatever I have, I can still lose my kingdom because I'm not aware of the nail problem. So as innovators and entrepreneurs, we need to do this 5 whys to understand what is the root problem that we should be solving. Because this is always important. Because look at this. In the 5 whys, if you're solving a problem which is at the 2nd why or the 3rd why, somebody else comes along and solves the problem at the 5th why, then his solution would be orders of magnitude powerful than yours. And that will totally disrupt what you are trying to do. So the deeper you go and solve the problem, the better it is for you. That's the reason why it's very important to ask these 5 whys and understand what is the root problem that I should be solving to solve this problem once and for all. Here again, a template for you to use. There are also a few very out of the box, very provocative questions. This is a person by name Phil McKinney, who was the CTO of HP a few years back. He runs a website called Killer Innovation. So there are hundreds of such provocative out of the box questions out there, which you can possibly use for your own ideation. I just picked a sample of those here. What are the rules and assumptions my industry operates under? And what if the opposite were true? What will be the buying criteria used by my customers in 5 years from now? What are my unshakable beliefs about what my customers want? This is a good one, actually. And who uses my product in ways I never anticipated? When I was working for GE, we had a GE appliance business, and we were making washing machines. And I think we had a JV with Godrej, and then we were selling in India. And the washing machines which were sold in all states, they were fine. But the washing machines sold in Punjab had a lot of issues. Okay, they used to break down very often, a lot of warranty cost, a lot of things. Then finally, when the engineers went out there to see what's going wrong with those washing machines in Punjab? What is it? They figured out that actually a lot of those washing machines were used for making lassi. Okay, so unless you go and see for yourself how the product is being used or misused, you won't be able to figure out what is causing the problem. But here is a very clear case where somebody wanted to solve a problem, in this case, making lassi in large scale. And he did not have a product in the market. There is no solution readily available. So he picked up the available product and adapted it for solving his problem. In essence, he is a lead user because he has created his own solution out of something that's existing out there. So this is always interesting to keep an eye on who uses my product in ways I never anticipated, because this can give you clues as to what else you can make, what are the adjacent opportunities for your technology, for your idea. So I would encourage you to look at this Killer Innovation website. There are hundreds of such trigger questions out there. So we talked about asking a few questions and gathering some basic information before you start your project. Once you start gathering, it's important for you to map it out in a very structured way. So here is an example that I have put together for you. If I'm solving a problem in the electric vehicle, electric mobility space, I need to look at multiple levels. One is what is inside the electric vehicle. That's what we call as subsystem. So I have shown here a battery, the body of the vehicle, the electric motor, the DC-DC converter, a bunch of things, whatever is inside the product. Then you should also look at what we call as a super system, which is all the things outside the product, but which interact with the product all the time. Okay, so I have shown the charging station, the power grid, the electricity distribution system, the roads on which these cars travel, and also renewable sources of energy, because the electric car, if it has to be green, the electricity should be generated from renewable sources. So I have also shown a solar PV panel here. So this is a super system, and whatever is inside the circle is a subsystem. So depending on the problem that you want to solve, you need to systematically map what is inside the product and what is outside the product. When I say outside the product, the elements which are going to interact with the product and are going to influence how your product will perform. So that's what I mean by the super system elements. So this is a very important map that you need to have in place, because you can leverage some of these interactions to deliver a better performance from your product. So it's very important for you to map this. So this is just a template for you to use. Having done that, what is there in the subsystem, what is there in the super system, you have done it only for the present, which is how it is today. You also need to do it for the past and for the future. Past, maybe you can go about 5 to 10 years back and see how it is. Because once you do that, it will tell you how the system has evolved. Okay. Then you also try to predict how it can possibly evolve in the future. Okay. When you map this is a tool we call as 9 windows. What you have essentially done is to look at the problem. Typically, you look at the problem at a system level and the present. Whereas what I have asked you to do now is to look at the problem at 3 levels: system, subsystem, and super system, and also across 3 time frames: past, present, and future. So instead of looking at the problem through just one window, you'll be able to look at the problem through 9 windows. And when you're able to do this, the probability of you solving the problem increases 9-fold. Because from every box, there is so much of learning. There are so many useful tips that are out there in terms of how it has evolved from the past to the present. And what are the trends based on which you can predict how it will evolve from the present to the future? And also the interactions within the subsystems and the supersystem elements, how they also evolve over the time. So all these 9 windows help you to look at the problem from multiple perspectives so that you are not looking at the problem through just one small lens and coming up with a very limited solution, but you are able to look at the problem in a lot more holistic way and come up with a solution which is not only just at a product level, but also at the ecosystem level, because we have factored in all the supersystem elements here. So far, we talked about the questions that you should ask at the beginning of your project. And then we also emphasized the importance of asking why 5 times. Then we looked at the opportunity map, which is looking what is there inside your product, which is a subsystem, what is there outside, which is a supersystem. And finally, now we are talking about mapping it across past, present, and future. So these many things we need to do in order to understand the problem fully. Once we do all this, then we are ready to actually start solving it. But before that, we need to do all these exercises to make sure that we are solving the right problem. Because otherwise you would solve it, but it may not be the right problem. So it's better to do all this, ensure that this is the right problem that you're solving. That's the intention behind this very elaborate discussion on only understanding the problem so far. So you remember our framework is flow, focus, which is about understanding the opportunity space. And then the next is leap and orient. This is where we talk about the ideation. How are we going to generate ideas to solve the problem? So this is the heart of any innovation project. So we will spend a little more time here to understand how we can come up with innovative ideas.
Shankar, can you take a couple of questions?
Sure, yes.
The first segment, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Yeah, so there was a question about super systems, for example.
Yes.
How do we project the super system in future? How do we know if our predictions are trustworthy? And also, how do we know if we captured all the subsystems and super systems? What happens if we find some of the missing later after we started on a solution, right?
Yes.
So perhaps you can take it with an example.
Absolutely. I will go back to my own electric vehicle example. I have not really covered all the subsystem components in the picture that I'm showing you here. I just picked up the 4, the most important ones. Depends on what problem you're solving. If I'm solving the problem of, say, the energy stored in the battery and how much range the vehicle can give, then a lot of my focus would be on the battery, the weight of the vehicle, and so on. So I'd look at the battery pack and also the body of the vehicle. I'll focus. So it's always okay to start with whatever you know in terms of subsystem components. And then as the problem evolves and also as your knowledge expands, you can keep adding more elements. So it's a dynamic tool. So it's not that you do it once and then forget about it. Continuously, you'll be adding new elements to it. Absolutely fine. That is about the subsystem. The super system, honestly, none of us know how the super system is going to evolve. We can only look at trends. For example, I know that over time, the renewables have become very, very affordable and their efficiencies are also improved. So I know that that is one trend I need to keep in mind when I'm looking at the electric vehicle space. I also know that the charging stations do not exist today, but there are a lot of work happening to build a network of charging stations for the next 5 years time frame. So although today it's not there, I know that 5 years from now it's going to be there. So that is another thing I factor in when I plan my solution in the electric mobility space. This is the way we go about it. We keep adding elements. It's not complete when we start the work. It's okay to keep adding things at a later stage. What is important is to draw arrows between all these elements and understand how they influence. If you are trying to increase the range of the electric vehicle, one of these arrows may help you to improve the range. And the other arrow may work against you and reduce the range. So it's important for you to know the interactions between all these elements and see whether it's a positive interaction or a negative interaction. That becomes very important when you set out to solve the problem. But it is okay to start with something which is only partial and then slowly add elements as you go along. No problem at all.
Shankar, from an entrepreneur's point of view, the bets that people make on which is the thing that will work is actually something that gives them the edge, right? I mean, they have convinced themselves that that is the super system that is going to work, and others may or may not agree, and therefore it creates an opportunity for them, right?
Yes.
And that's actually quite an important aspect, that it's the view of the future and what you're betting
Correct.
on in terms of how super systems will shape, systems will shape. For example, a fuel cell, which membrane might actually work at the end of the day, might be a bet that somebody's making.
Absolutely. Uh, One more angle to this is, see, you may be an entrepreneur focusing on only building electric vehicle. So you are within this red circle that I'm showing here. But you realize that the super system is not ready. Charging stations are not there. Then, like what in the case of Tesla, what Elon Musk did was to first go ahead and build the network of charging stations, even before getting the product out to the market. So you can decide to see if the ecosystem is not ready, will I partner with somebody and get the ecosystem ready before getting the product out there? These are the choices that you can make as you go along. But finally, by the time the product comes to the market, the ecosystem should be ready. Either you develop it or somebody else develops it, but it has to be ready for the product to deliver its performance. So that is something we need to keep in mind.
Shankar, thank you. Please go ahead.
Yes, sure. So friends, we are moving from focus to the next phase, which is leap and orient. Leap and orient, as I said, leap is leaping, letting go all the old ideas, leaping into this new space, which is a brand new idea. We don't know whether the idea will work or not, whether it will meet the cost target or not, whether we'll be able to scale it up sufficiently, we don't know. But we are taking that bold leap. And leap goes along with orient because as we shape up this idea, we should be recognizing the various constraints and evolve the idea in such a way that this idea works in spite of all these constraints. Okay, that's how this is leap and orient together. It's not leap and then orient. It's not serial. It's a very parallel activity that we need to train ourselves to do. Here, we use a very powerful concept called the ideal solution. The ideal solution is a solution which has only useful features. There is no harmful features, and ideally there is no cost also. So that's why it's called the ideal solution. And it's defined as a ratio of the useful functions by the harmful function and cost. Okay, for example, if you take a smartphone, useful functions would be its connectivity, primary function, then secondary functions like storing information or taking photographs, a whole bunch of things. The harmful function in this context is that once the battery gets drained out, it will stop functioning. Or if you're in a region where there is no connectivity, then the phone is of no use. All these dependencies become harmful functions. And as an innovator, your job is to reduce all these harmful functions so that the battery never runs out. There is, even in a region where there is no connectivity, still the phone should work. All those kind of things you need to do as an innovator to make the product better and better. Now, of course, you have to keep reducing the cost so that more and more people will be able to afford your product. And useful functions, you'll continuously keep adding. Either the primary functions or secondary and tertiary functions you can add, so that overall there are more and more useful functions from your product. So ideality can be theoretically infinite, in the sense can have all useful functions and zero harmful functions and zero cost. So one way in which you can predict how the technology is going to evolve, how your product will evolve in the future, is always that ideality will improve. Means the future product will have more useful functions, less harmful function, and it will cost less as compared to the current product. So that is one sure way in which you can predict the direction in which things are going to evolve. That there is no doubt. You may not know what will be the specific technology enabler that makes it happen, but you will know for sure that the direction is that direction, where useful features improve, harmful features reduce, the cost reduces. So very simple. So these are the three vectors of innovation. If you are entering a space where there is already a solution, where there is already a product out there, and you want to come up with something better, then you can pursue three directions. One is to ask what are the useful functions that we are currently doing well and how we can improve it further. That is one direction. Second direction is what are the limitations that we need to overcome or the harmful stuff that we need to reduce or eliminate. That is the second direction to pursue to come up with a superior product. And the third direction is what are the cost factors that we can possibly reduce and make the product more affordable. And if you are lucky, you may be able to pursue more than one of these directions and achieve multiple objectives also. But to start with, you can prioritize, depending on which is a burning issue. You can prioritize to focus on one of these three directions. So here again is a small template for you to say the space that you are looking at. When you compare your solution with respect to the available solutions, what are the useful features that you want to improve? What are the harmful features you want to reduce or eliminate? And what are the cost factors that you want to reduce, eliminate? So these are three boxes. These are three different classes of problems that you can choose to work on. Or if you want to solve all three, maybe you can partner with people, right people, to take up all the three problems and solve also. But these three are fundamentally three different classes of problems with three very different objectives. Now the problem is defined. I need ideas, isn't it? So it took us this long to reach the problem definition itself. Now we have to move to the next stage as to how I can come up with ideas to solve these problems. This is where I'm going to introduce a small, simple tool called Create, which will help you to think in 6 possible directions and come up with ideas for your problem. The 6 directions are combine, rearrange, enhance, adapt, turn around, and eliminate. Let's understand how this works. Okay. Let's look at combine to start with. I'm sure you're all seeing these kind of combine ideas all around you. Somebody combined a pair of wheels with a heavy suitcase and made life easy for us. And somebody combined a bell with a clock and made life easy for us. And of course, you've also seen how we can combine a telephone and a printer, which becomes a fax machine. So these are very common. There are so many innovations, so many very useful products all around us, where the two things existed independently, but somebody just brought them together. Just by the simple combining two well-known things, they were able to create immense value. Those products have been selling pretty well. So the first trigger for us to solve any problem is to ask, what can I combine with the existing product to solve this problem in a better way? Very simple. But it's a very powerful trigger because The creativity comes in the way you combine. The components by itself are there already, it's well known, but the way you combine, it's where the creativity is. The printing press, before the printing press came, this was a press. This was used to squeeze the grapes and get the juice out of it to make wine. Somebody thought, instead of putting grapes there, can I put these blocks of letters there and print things? So that press existed for a totally different function. And then just by the creativity of a person, it could become the printing press. Okay. So a lot of things that we taken for granted, thinking it's always been around, have actually started off as simple combined ideas. In fact, one of the startups I had met when I was at the Venture Center a couple of years back was a startup, Jeevtronics. You have this, what we call as a defibrillator, which is typically kept in hospitals. When a person has a cardiac arrest, this is used to quickly revive him. This is a high voltage. Then this is used to give a quick shock and get the heart back to functioning. But many times what happens, this defibrillator may not work when you want to use it. It might have run out of charge, might have charged long time back, might have lost charge over time, variety of things. So what is the use? If the fibrillator is there, but it doesn't have that charge for you to use it, it's no fun. Then there were these hand cranked radios that were developed for parts of Africa where electricity, they were off-grid places. So there's a hand-cranked radios, which are quite popular. So these guys, they combined these two ideas and said, can I use this hand cranking to build a high voltage in this defibrillator so that very quickly I can build the voltage and then use it for an emergency situation like this. Look at this, power of this idea is really very impressive because the hand crank concept, although it was known in some other space, the context of a radio. But once you bring it to this can save lives. So this is a product from the startup company called Jeevtronics. So combine is not very difficult. Actually, you can very easily train yourself to combine. So in each of these triggers, what I have done is I've put together some triggers and a very systematic way how you can train yourself to use each of these triggers. Okay. So there are multiple ways in which you can combine. That's why I've given multiple triggers for each one of this. And this is best done when you go and practice it out. Typically, I do this in a workshop mode. This is the first time I'm doing it in an online way. So you have to go back and practice these tools for some problems that you're trying to solve. See, there are 6 triggers, CREATE. Set aside 10 minutes for each. Totally 1 hour is what you need to try all these triggers. I'm sure you'll end up with some really out-of-the-box ideas at the end of this 1 hour. The second one, rearrange, is even more easier than combine because here you don't bring anything new. You just rearrange whatever is existing out there. Okay. And because since you don't need any additional resources, rearrange becomes a lot more easier than combine. Enhance is if something is small, make it big. If something is light, make it heavy, or the vice versa. Like that, enhance uses simple words like amplify, boost, expand, strengthen, enlarge, multiply. A lot of these synonyms, which is basically enhancing different parameters, different contexts, to basically say just by enhancing, can I improve the performance of the product? The context of a phone, can ask, can I enhance the energy that the battery of my phone can carry? Same is true with the electric vehicle too. And then you can ask, can I enhance the memory so that it can store more information? Or can I improve the energy that it uses for performing different functions so that by using less energy, it can do more functions? These are very simple questions to ask to see where it can improve how I can improve. This won't give you the answers, but it will help you to ask the right questions, which will help you to eventually improve the product. This is enhance. Adapt is a lot of fun, actually. Of all the triggers, you would really enjoy using adapt. Because adapt is about looking at ideas in a totally different space and bringing it to your own space. So I've given some examples where people are adapted from nature to come up with very innovative solutions and products. The Velcro that we all use, it came from adapting from nature, where this person had gone out for a walk with his dog. Then when he came back home, he saw a lot of those burrs which are stuck to the fur of the dog. And he was curious as to why it sticks. He took it up and then put it under a microscope to see the hook kind of a structure that it has. And then he was able to replicate these structures with the synthetic materials in the lab. And that became the Velcro, which is so useful. So you find it almost in all kinds of applications. Today, we can't imagine how it would have been without Velcro being around. The bullet train, when it was the early days of bullet train in Japan, when the train comes out of a tunnel, it used to make a boom sound. And this boom sound was very disturbing because this track runs through residential areas, and this sound is not acceptable in residential areas. It's well beyond the limits. So unless they do something to reduce the sound, you can't have those bullet trains running around. So the project leader for this was struggling hard to solve this problem because the bullet train comes at such high speed, comes out of the tunnel. The boom sound is very difficult to control. Turns out that the project leader is also on the weekends, he likes bird watching. So he used to go with his binoculars for long stretches of bird watching on the weekends. So he happened to see this kingfisher take a dive, take a plunge into the water, catch a fish, and fly back. And it did it in such a way that there was no disturbance to the water, no ripples, nothing was created. Just came, picked it, and went back. Because if it creates disturbance, it won't be able to catch its prey. So it has to do it in a very quiet manner. Then he studied it carefully to understand the shape of the beak, the longish shape of the beak, which actually helped to make it a very, very smooth transition when it goes from the air into the water, comes out of it. So that was the inspiration to design this long beak-like structures for these bullet trains, which actually solved the problem. It brought down the noise very, very significantly, that they could get the permissions to run these trains in the residential areas. Absolutely. There are many such examples of nature's inspired innovation, broad area of what we call as biomimetics. But when I say adapt, this is not just limited to adapting from nature. You can adapt from anywhere else. Also. For example, if I'm trying to design a washing machine, I can look at something totally different. I can ask, what can I borrow from a refrigerator? What can I borrow from an ATM machine? What can I borrow from a television? Like that, I can look for features which are in a totally different class of products and see, by transferring those features to my product, how can I make it more innovative and more useful to the end user. So adapt is very powerful. The last two triggers. The first, we started with combine, rearrange, which are small incremental things, which give us small ideas. But with adapt, we move to a slightly different class of a trigger, which allows you to bring an idea from a different domain. The last two are very, very powerful triggers. Turn around and eliminate. Turnaround is actually doing the opposite of what we otherwise do. So it needs a lot of courage and conviction to even try a turnaround idea. It's not easy because the whole world has been doing it in one particular way for so long. Then suddenly you're going to try something different, something different direction. One of the examples for this is the energy drink, Gatorade. Conventional wisdom says See, it goes back to, interestingly, to Ayurvedic formulation, actually. So this was, the context was in parts of Bangladesh when there was a cholera outbreak. It was a very severe. This was in 60s. The patients need to figure out a way to keep them hydrated. So the doctors were struggling, looking at various possible solutions to save these patients. And then there was this very unique concoction, which has coconut water, carrot juice, rice water, some flour, and also dehydrated bananas. All this goes into a very unique concoction, which worked very fine with these patients, and they were able to quickly hydrate themselves and recover. But conventionally, they say that we should not give carbohydrates. Okay. But in this case, by giving carbohydrate and sugar, along with a little bit of salt, we found that the uptake was much better. The patients rehydrated very, very fast. So something counterintuitive and not so well known also. This got published in the Lancet. And finally, a doctor in Florida got to read about this. Then he said, if this works for this extreme case where the patient suffering from cholera, he could rehydrate and recover, why not for a healthy sports person like a football player who want to very quickly rehydrate himself to get back to the game? Why can't we try? And that gave birth to the idea of the very successful Gatorade, the energy drink. So turnaround is basically to pursue an idea in the opposite direction with the conventional wisdom. So you need to do a lot of very careful research and experimentation before you decide to pursue your turnaround idea. But your idea would be so different. It's like a blue ocean. Absolutely. There is no other player. You will be the only person to pursue that. And that will give you a tremendous edge over all other competitors if you succeed with a turnaround idea. I used to work for GE, and GE came up with a whole class of products around this kind of turnaround ideas. We called it as reverse innovation, where we used to develop very low cost, very affordable, simple products for rural markets. Like two of the experiments that happened when I was at GE was for India and China market. One was the X-ray machine and the other was ultrasound machine. At almost 1/10 of the price. Okay? 1/10 of the price, imagine. These products were developed because these hospitals, these regions can afford only that price. They can't pay the conventional price of an expensive ultrasound machine or the X-ray machine. But 1/10 was reasonable. Many hospitals will be able to afford that. So the team went on to design and develop very minimal, no frills, but performance is critical. So that is not compromised, but everything else is trimmed down so that you will have a functional product at almost 1/10 of the price. But also, incidentally, we also made it in such a way that it was 1/3 of the size of the weight. And this sold well in emerging markets, India, China, everywhere it sold well. But interestingly, what it happened is when people in the developed markets back in the US and Europe, when they saw this product, they said, we also want this. Why? Many of the applications like the emergency vans, they needed something small and compact, but there are no such products in those markets. So what was developed for this small market in India and China, especially the rural parts, suddenly started selling everywhere across the globe. And people were very happy because they badly needed that, and that product didn't exist all these years. Now, because of this innovation, it was made possible. So this allowed GE to really take this framework of reverse innovation across healthcare, many different products, also take it to other businesses to see how you can develop a product for a unique needs of a very small market. And then how you can actually go ahead and adapt it to meet the needs of many other segments across the globe. So typically what happens, innovation flows from the mature developed regions to the developing. But in this case, it was the other direction. From here, it went everywhere to the other parts of the globe. That's how they called it as reverse innovation. And these products are very easily available in the market today. We have mobile ultrasound, small tabletop compact X-ray machines. All these are readily available today. So when you want to come up with this turnaround ideas, we do something called a reverse brainstorming. Means essentially we list down what are the assumptions, reverse the assumptions, and do a brainstorming around the reversed assumptions. For example, if I'm talking about a school, say I want to design a school, the assumptions are I need a teacher, I need a building, I need students, I need books. Then I reverse each of the assumptions. Can I run my school without a building? Can I run my school without teachers? Can I run my school without books? And then start looking for alternatives. The entire brainstorming is around the reversed assumptions. So gather lots of ideas. Take these ideas, put it back in the original system. That's what we call as reverse brainstorming. So any problem that you take, you can list down the assumptions, then reverse the assumptions and run your brainstorming sessions around the reversed assumptions. That can give you lots and lots of turnaround ideas. Sometimes we'll be really surprised that how come you didn't think of it all these days. But be prepared for those surprises. The last one, the eliminate. So in create, we looked at combine, rearrange, enhance, adapt, turn around, and finally, let us look at eliminate. When I say eliminate, I'm not talking about eliminating some small fringe features, but I'm eliminating the heart of the product, okay? And looking at if I remove this heart of this product, can I still keep it useful? How can I do that, okay? So I'm sure you can recognize this is the front bonnet of a Tesla Model S electric car. So he has just gone ahead and eliminated the engine. So all you have is free space there where you can keep your luggage. So for so many decades, nobody ever thought that the engine of the car can be eliminated. But here is an elimination idea where the engine and all the things that comes along with the engine, none of them are there. And so this is just a free space for you to use. So if you think that this is something very revolutionary, when you look at the Google's autonomous car, you have eliminated the driver himself. So you don't need the driver anymore. So eliminated the steering, accelerator, brake pad, everything is by wire. Okay. So, and of course, there is no driver. So eliminate is all about looking at something that is right at the heart of the product, then asking if I eliminate this, how will the product look? What ideas do I need to still make the product relevant and possibly deliver a superior performance? This is what eliminate is all about. So friends, there are 6 directions which you can pursue to come up with fresh ideas. Try combine for 10 minutes, but 10 minutes, we should not look at anything else. We should just focus only on combine and see how many ideas I can get by combining something with my product. From the 11th minute onwards, you should switch over to rearrange. Spend the next 10 minutes looking at only rearrange and say, how can I rearrange existing things in the product to make it more useful or less harmful or make it costless. Same way with enhance, same way with adapt. In adapt especially, don't look for any similar products or similar systems. Pick up randomly a system or a product which is very different from yours and try to extract some feature from there and introduce here. Then it will be really very effective. And then turn around and eliminate.
Shankar,
Now,
can you take some questions?
yeah, sure. Sure.
I mean, sorry, did I interrupt
No,
something?
no, 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 no. This is the right time to take a pause.
Okay. So there are some questions which
Yes.
relate to basically if you're doing, say, rearranging,
Yes.
or if you're adapting from another, another particular product, or
Yes.
if you're combining, turning around, or rearrange, do you think that there'll be IP infringement issues, and how do you deal with it, or will it be inventive enough when you combine some of these things?
Absolutely. So when you apply for a patent, there are three things they will ask. Is it novel? Is it non-obvious? And is it practically useful? So where you will have a tough time is proving that it is non-obvious. They'll say this existed, you have just brought them together. So what is a big deal? Fair. So if you're able to prove that it is still non-obvious, you did something more rather than just keeping these two things together. You solved a problem to actually bring them together and make them work. Then that whatever you did to make it work, that is still patentable. But suppose even that is not there. It was a straightforward combination. Fine, no harm. You may not be able to patent protect it, but still you have a product with you which is useful, which is doing something which the individual products did not do, and which your customers find it useful and they're ready to pay you and buy it from you. So it's still fine. Not everything you do, you may be able to patent protect it, but also look for those opportunities where you can do something inventive so that you'll be able to protect that creative combination that you have done. So explore that possibility always. Don't give up.
So, Shankar, can I add here a comment?
Yes.
So, as far as patentability is concerned, combining two things is not a reason for saying that it is obvious if you have a so-called surprising new effect, right? Or a synergistic effect of some kind. So, for example, if there was a process which was running process A and then a process B and a process C in that sequence, and you switched it to A, C, B instead of A, B, C, and the result was very different, you can use the data to show that it is not obvious. Okay, that rearrangement was not obvious. By the way, that is an example of a rearrangement. Somebody else had also asked about it, right? But there's a different question, which is an IP infringement, right?
Yes.
That is, if there is somebody who has done something and you're borrowing that, right? Is there a question of IP infringement?
Yes, definitely. So we have to talk to them and license their part of the technology and then build our technology on top of it. So there has to be an agreement and a mutual understanding that both parties are ready to share and work together. Otherwise, there will be infringement. So you have to be careful about it. Yes.
Yeah. Just a caveat to that, Shankar has assumed that patent is still valid.
Yeah. Correct. Correct.
Okay. The one which you're thinking you're infringing. But there is so much in the patent literature which is already there, which you can copy freely because it is meant to be copied. And actually, interestingly, Shankar, you should tell the story of how the whole TRIS thing came up, right?
Correct. True. That's true. The whole of TRIS, which is one of the most powerful innovation method, is basically built on by studying the patents. All the patented ideas out there, Altshuler studied to see how problems can be solved. And he came up with just 40 ways, 40 very powerful ways called inventive principles in which problems can be solved. So you can use patents actually to come up with fresh ideas and solve problems. That's the best place to look for ideas. And as Dr. Premnath said, patent typical life is 20 years. That too, if you continuously pay the money and maintain it for 20 years. Otherwise, if somebody doesn't show interest, stop it halfway through, then the patent becomes public domain knowledge. Anybody can access it. So don't get worried just because you see something in a patent. It may or may not be valid still. So there is still opportunity for you to use the information out there. Or sometimes by using TRIS kind of inventive principles, you'll be able to design around that idea and come up with a better way to solve the same problem. So there are ways of still going ahead with it. So always talk to an expert when you come across something which you think may block what you're trying to do. Best is to talk to an expert. Don't try to guess by yourself.
Yeah, and to add to that, Tulsi has added that patent rights are territorial as well, right?
Absolutely, that is also true.
Copy
So
some.
if you are selling a product in India, you need to have a patent in India. But if somebody is doing it in some other region, they need to have a patent in that region. So what they have in US cannot prevent you from doing it in India. So each patent is valid only in that region where it is filed and granted.
Yeah. So just to continue on this a little bit regarding flow, there is a question on how does one consciously adopt this framework before it becomes second nature? Would you recommend a checklist type approach?
Correct.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give a checklist. I'm also going to give you a set of templates so that at the different stages, whether you are in focus, sleep and orient, or what's next, you can do a quick check to see whether you have answers for all these questions, or if something is missing, you can go back and find those answers. So I'm going to give you a checklist. It takes, if you do 2 or 3 projects in this framework, then you will be able to do it automatically. The first few times, it's better to have a checklist with you. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a question on the segment before on the ideality calculation.
Yes.
And basically, first of all, I presume this is a qualitative equation, right? In the sense,
Yes, that is true. It's not a quantitative one, it's just a qualitative. Yes.
Yeah. And also, does the ideality, how you use ideality equation, does it depend on what are the existing solutions already
Correct.
there?
It's always with respect to what is existing out there. That's true.
Okay, great. So I think with that, let's continue, Shankar.
Yes. Yeah. So the context of this create was actually a detour from our main discussion, because I wanted to quickly introduce to you simple triggers like create, how it can quickly help you to look in 6 possible directions and gets a lot of ideas. So sometimes we think that we may not get an idea when we want, but this is just to say that whenever you want, you can actually create the environment and get some ideas very quickly by using these triggers. Okay. Now, I'm going to combine the ideas that you got out of the create with the problems that you define from the ideality. Okay, this is the important part. Okay, this is where the two things come together and help you to connect the problem and the solution. So just stay with me when I move to the next slide. This is a very, very important slide for you. Okay, if there is one slide which you can take away from this whole discussion, that is this slide. Okay. So what we have done here is to list the 3 problems. How to improve the useful function. So you can write it as how to improve the life of my product, or how to improve the energy efficiency of my product. You can contextualize it. Second is how to reduce the harmful function. You can say how to reduce the radiation levels, how to reduce the energy consumed by my product, how to reduce the friction, wear and tear of the product, whole bunch of things. Then the third is how to reduce the cost. So here again, you can take the top 3 most expensive components and say how to reduce the cost of A, how to reduce the cost of B and C. So you have a list of problems that you want to solve along your horizontal axis. Now on the vertical axis, you're going to use the 6 triggers. What can I combine? What can I rearrange? What can I enhance? What can I adapt from somewhere? What can I turn around? What I can eliminate? So now we have a nice grid. Okay. So the way you use this is, now first problem, how to improve some particular useful function. Then you will go through combine first. Can I do it by combining something? Okay. For example, when somebody combined a camera with a phone, they would have looked at some particular useful function, either a primary function or a secondary function they wanted to improve. And then said, by combining a camera, can I achieve that? Okay. Same way, the wheels with the suitcase. Okay. The useful function is ease of carrying it around. Can I improve the ease of carrying a suitcase around by combining something? So what will I combine? Maybe I'll combine the wheels. I'll combine a handle. I'll combine this. I'll combine that. Okay, fine. So each of the problem you systematically apply all the 6 triggers to exhaust all possible ways in which we can solve the problem. So if you have 3 useful functions to improve, 3 harmful functions to reduce, and 3 cost to reduce, so you have 9 problems. And then you have 6 triggers. So 9 into 6, okay? Imagine that many ideas you will get at the end of this exercise. And of course, you may not get it at one shot. You have to keep this before your eyes, print it on a big chart and put it up in your lab. Keep looking at it. It's not to be done alone. It has to be done as a group. Because somebody may be very good at combine. Somebody else may be very good at adapt. So you want to bring the entire team together, put this chart up, a lot of post-its, and keep putting ideas, okay? And this should be a very focused, very intense exercise. And then it's not one time. You can do it every Saturday. For example, we will go to this chart and spend 1 hour, okay? That becomes a ritual for your team. Every Saturday, 9 to 10, you're going to assemble around this chart and add some more ideas to this. Okay? This becomes very powerful. This becomes your idea bank, actually, because you have listed all the problems and you are trying to solve the problem in 6 different ways. And many of this will become patents for you. So this is your patent portfolio in some sense. So this is a very, very nice tool because it gives you ideas and also brings the team together. And also here very easily you'll be able to build on each other's idea. Somebody puts a post-it, then you get an idea, oh, I can further improve it. And then you write another thing and put one more post-it next to it. So it becomes a collective creativity tool, improves collaboration, improves mutual respect between people. And then at the end of the day, you have tons of ideas to pursue. Okay? This is a very, very useful tool to have for any team, which is trying to come up with innovative solutions. And at the early stage of ideation, this is very, very useful. So all you need is a big chart paper on which you can print this out and a bunch of post-it notes, marker pens. That's it. That investment is very minimal, but the output will be lots and lots of good ideas. And the triggers are very simple and straightforward. It won't take a long time for you to explain these triggers to anybody. But just by looking at the words, people can understand what it is, and they'll be able to participate in the ideation. So it's a very nice, fun exercise that I encourage each one of you to try it out. Okay. Now let's, you're going to have lots of ideas at the end of this exercise. So now you have a problem. Earlier, the problem was you didn't have many ideas, but now the problem is you have too many ideas. Now you need to figure out how to prioritize these ideas, which are the ones to take forward. So that's where the next tool becomes very useful. Let me show you what this is. Okay, before that, again, I want to take a small detour. A lot of focus today was on your ability to ask the right questions, to define the problem or to reframe the problem in a better way. There's one more skill that I want to briefly touch upon. Okay, this is the importance of incubating. Okay? Because you're always in a hurry. You want to very quickly develop the idea and take it to the market. But incubation, sometimes it comes on your way. It says, no, slow down a bit. There is some value if you actually sleep over the idea rather than rushing with it. Okay. So how do you bring the discipline of incubating the idea in your fast-paced flow? How are you going to do this? And why is it important? Is it really important? This is where I want to just take a small detour. We'll just spend a couple of minutes here before we come back to the flow framework. So I'm sure you have heard all these interesting stories of Newton sitting under a tree, seeing the apple fall, or Archimedes finding that law of flotation when he got into the bathtub and saw the water flowing out. Some of you who have studied chemistry may know of how the structure of benzene was discovered. And Kekule actually dreamed of a snake trying to catch its own tail. That's how he came up with the structure of benzene. One thing common between all these 3 stories across physics, chemistry, and whatnot is these guys were not actively working on the idea when that spark came. Okay, one was just sitting under a tree and relaxed. Other was taking bath The third guy was actually sleeping. This was in a dream. Okay. So in these three cases, the bright idea, the best idea actually came when they were not actively pursuing the idea, but when they were in a very relaxed frame of mind. So what is happening here? How come they got their best ideas when they were not really focused on it, but suddenly the idea just like that came out of nowhere? Is it true? Or was it that they had concentrated on solving the problem, worked very intensely, and then took a break from that just to relax the mind? And in the relaxed mind state, the relaxed mind state was more conducive for the idea to come out and express itself. What exactly is happening? Because these are big inventions, whether it's gravity or the buoyancy principle or the structure of benzene, you can't take any of this lightly. These are big inventions. And all this happened when the people were in a very relaxed state. So what is the connection between these two? And what is it got to do with the incubation of ideas itself? So I was quite curious. So I started reading about a lot of these people trying to describe their experience of what happened when they came up with this idea and stuff. And the best explanation was given by Poincare. Poincare had written a very detailed article on his own creative process, how he used to solve problems, how he came up with ideas. So he has given a very nice three-step process, which you can all very effectively use. First step is that you work very hard. Okay? You intensely focus, try to solve the problem. That's the first step. But nothing happens. Okay? After spending so much time and focusing on it, still you have not made any progress. Nothing has happened. And the second step is you say, okay, I'm going to take a break. Then you go for a walk, or you listen to music, or maybe you just sleep for some time. Just take a break. Okay? That's the second step. The third step, again, you come back after the break, you come back and again sit down to continue your work. That's when something interesting happens. When you sit down to work after the break, during the first half an hour or so, as before, nothing happens. It continues the same way. But then, all of a sudden, the decisive idea presents itself to the mind. These are the words of Poincare. Okay. So he says, you are intensely focused on the problem, nothing happens. Then you take a conscious break. After the break, you come back and again sit down to continue the work. First few minutes, nothing happens. And suddenly the idea presents itself. It's a very interesting process. And this is not just these few people, many others across different branches of science and even other domains have shared similar experiences and conditions under which the creative idea presented itself. It's a very interesting thing. And you can actually create this environment in your lab also. Whenever you're working on a problem and you're not making progress, just take a break. Work on a different problem maybe. If you don't want to take a break, have 2 or 3 problems. So whenever you are bored with one, work on the second problem, third problem, and come back to it. Okay, that's perfectly fine. But that break time is a time when the subconscious mind actually organizes the information and presents it to you. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. A lot of pieces are there. And then you are actively trying to put them all together, but you don't have the big picture. The subconscious mind is actually good at it. So if you give it some time and space to do it, it can arrange things and show you to you in a better light. So that's one way to look at this. But none of us know exactly the mechanism, what happens. But there are so many people, very successful innovators, who have shared this kind of experience to say, this is how they got their creative idea. So friends, it doesn't matter, the mechanism doesn't matter, but there's a high probability that you will get a good idea if you follow this 3-step process. Okay, so this is what I mean by incubating. Okay, You can incubate when you are in the problem analysis mode, or you can incubate when you have some seed idea to start working with. At any stage, you can incubate, but it will do a lot of good for you. Okay, so this is a small detour that I wanted to take. Now we will get back to the main flow framework. Right. So we talked about focus, and we also talked about taking a lead. But we also want to make sure that we orient the new idea, orient with respect to the various real life constraints out there. Okay. So for this, after using create, you have lots and lots of ideas there. Now you want an easy way in which you can select the best ideas. So I'm going to give you some simple lenses through which you can look at the ideas and then decide which are the best ones to pursue. I'm going to give you 4 lenses. The first one is the lens of desirability, which is asking whether my customer would desire this product. It's not whether the customer would like this product, it's whether the customer would desire this product. Okay? There should be intense liking for this product. That's a very first question to ask. The second question is it technically feasible? Or can I make it feasible in a reasonable amount of time? In the sense, can I make the technology work? The third is it economically viable? In the sense, will the product be affordable? And also, will I make a reasonable profit by selling this product? That's the economic viability part. And the fourth one is, will it be sustainable? Okay, can I do it again and again and again, multiple times? Is it sustainable? These are the 4 simple lenses, very basic things that we use to screen the ideas. This is just for the first level of screening, but it will help you very effectively to quickly prioritize. If you have, say, about 100 ideas, if you want to get the top 10, this is a very easy way to eliminate the 90 and pick the top 10. All you are asking is, will the customer desire it? Is it technically feasible? Will it be economically viable? Is it sustainable? And how do we do that? Here is the template. So just list the ideas that you got out of your create exercise. And then you create these 4 metrics: desirability, feasibility, viability, and sustainability. And you bring the entire team together, okay? And ask them to give a high, medium, low rating for each of this. Take one idea, desirability. With whatever limited information you know, do you think the customer would really love this product? Yes, then it's a high score. So customer may or may not like, it's medium. You're sure that customer will not like because there are a lot of changes. He has to train himself to use this product. You know for sure that customer may not desire it, then it's a low score. So like that, we go through this for feasibility, viability, and sustainability. And the entire team, everybody gets to give a score, high, medium, low. All these things are being considered and added up eventually. High, you can give a 5 for high, a 3 for medium, and a 1 for low, so that you can easily add it up and see which are the top 10 ideas. Okay. The best part, it's not about the numbers, it's not what you get, which is interesting, useful out of this tool, but the discussion that happens when you do this. Suppose you think it's a high score, somebody else in the team thinks it's a medium score, and then you both start debating, you both start arguing why you think it's high, why he thinks it's a low, or why somebody else thinks it's a medium. All this discussion brings multiple perspectives, actually. And if you carefully follow these discussions and pick up the essential things and use it to improve the idea, then at the end of this exercise, you will have a very strong idea. You might have started with, say, 20 small ideas, but eventually you will end up with 4 or 5 really strong ideas, because all the discussion and the debate that happens within the team while scoring this leads to very good insights, which you can use to improve the idea. So this exercise, again, is a collective team exercise, and it cannot be done at one shot. It needs multiple iterations, but you should not do it in a rush. You should give enough time so that everybody gets to defend their idea, their rating, talk about it in great detail, because all this is going to help you to refine the idea as you go along. So this is the orient part, because with create, we got a lot of ideas, which was a divergent exercise. But here we are trying to select the top few ideas. So this we call as a convergent thinking exercise, because we are trying to narrow down from lots of ideas, we're trying to move to few strong ideas. So unlike create, which was a divergent thinking tool, this is a convergent thinking tool. So essentially what we have covered so far is the focus, which is the problem formulation, and the leap and orient, which is the idea generation part. What we have not covered so far is the what's next, which is predicting what's going to happen in terms of new technologies and new market needs. Okay, this is one thing that we have not covered so far. Also, let us quickly take stock of what all we have done, because it's been a long session. So I don't know how many of you remember some of the things that we talked about right at the beginning. So let me give you a quick summary. We started with talking about some of the challenges around inventive problem solving. Before that, we spent some time understanding different types of problem, the inventive nature, and also how to evolve the idea all the way to a solution. Then we said, here is a framework which we can use to simplify the process and make it very structured and systematic. That's what is flow, focus, leap and orient, and what's next. In focus, we started with some very simple, very basic questions like who is affected, when is it a problem, where is it a problem, and this is called 5W and 1H. These are also called as the Kipling questions. Then we talked about the 5 Whys. Then we looked at the opportunity map. Do you remember where we had these 2 concentric circles, the subsystem and the supersystem? Then we also said, if we can take this is all the problem in the present. We can also do a time travel and say how it was in the past, how it is in the future. You essentially get 9 windows through which you can look at the problem. And this will enhance the probability of solving the problem because you are able to look at it from multiple perspectives. Then leap and orient. In leap and orient, we said focus is fine. We have formulated the problem. Leap and orient, we wanted to come up with lots of ideas to solve this problem. And one of the things that we used is a divergent thinking tool called create, which was basically combine, rearrange, enhance, adapt, turn around, and eliminate. So 6 directions in which we can think and solve any given problem or improve any given product. So we went through this exercise. And then now we have lots of ideas. How do we prioritize this? That's when we said that we will use the 3 lenses of design thinking, which is desirability, feasibility, and viability, and add a 4th lens to it, which is sustainability. So this is a convergent thinking tool, which will help us to do a very quick screening of a large number of ideas and pick the top few ideas. Because with the available time and the available resources, it's very difficult to pursue too many ideas. It will dilute the effort. So it's very important for us to do it at an early stage, but it should be done in a way that it has the consensus of the entire team. So everybody should be on the same page when it comes to looking at the idea as desirable, feasible, viable, and sustainable. So this exercise helps the team to understand each other's perspective and come to a common understanding or a common view. What's next, which is in terms of predicting technology trends, the changing needs of the market, we are going to talk the next time when we meet. We are not going to cover it today because there is a lot out there. There's so many new technologies coming in. Many of them are growing exponentially, and these technologies are also converging. And there is so much to talk about it there. We can't do justice to that topic today in this limited time. So I'm not even going to scratch the surface of it. I've totally kept it aside that we are not going to do that. But there is one thing that I want to cover before we wrap up our discussion today, which is, so far we talked about only the idea, but that is only half the journey. If you remember our definition of innovation, we talked about insightful idea, creating value to the customer, and then overcoming the barriers and taking the idea from the lab to the market. That part, which is taking the idea to the market, is something I want to spend a few minutes on before we wrap up today. And that's what this chart is about. Just like we said, we need these 5 skills: observation, listening, connecting, associating, experimenting, for coming up with disruptive ideas. These are the top 5 skills we need to take the idea successfully to the market. Let us look at what these 5 skills are. Okay. One is entrepreneurial thinking, which is your ability to make money out of the idea. How do you basically create value out of the idea so that it translates to money? Second is what we call as a soothsayer, your ability to predict what's next in terms of technology, what's in terms of market needs, what's next, basically. The third is almost like a magician. It is your ability to keep the cost down to the magical tipping point where the customer is ready. In the sense, say, you may make a product, say at 1,000 rupees, but you should know what is the customer ready to pay for when you are developing it only. So if you figure out that the customer is ready to pay only 100 rupees for this product, then you should be able to do those innovations which will bring your product from 1,000 to 100. So there are 2 parts. One is knowing what the customer is ready to pay. And the second is bridging the gap between where you are versus where you need to be at the right tipping point that the customer will be able to afford your product. It's a very tough one, but it's a very important one. Then there is what I call as alchemy, where you should be able to convert the technology 10x into a user experience 10x. Suppose you are using a superior technology. You are very excited about it. You are using some nanotechnology, some state of the art, something very high-fi you're using. But the end user doesn't care. For him, technology is a black box. Unless his user experience is also improved, if not 10x, at least a 2x or 3x, you won't appreciate the technology that you have put in the product. So you should be able to translate the superior technology into a superior user experience. This is very important because only you care for the technology. The customer cares only for the experience they get at the end of it. So you should be able to do that well. And finally, a topic which we did touch upon is the ability to think strategically and come up with a strong portfolio of patents to protect your idea, and also ability to look at what's ahead in terms of technology and create those ideas and patents which will secure your path for the future also. So this is the strategic thinking within the technology space, though, your ability to do that. So as an innovator and entrepreneur, it's not sufficient if you solve just today's problem with the innovative idea. You should also be able to bring all these elements together to make sure that this idea becomes sustainable. And this idea makes money. This idea is able to give a superior user experience. This idea is affordable. And this is sustainable because you're able to protect it and derive the benefits from it. again and again for an extended period of time. So as innovators, we need to train ourselves to think beyond the idea, to look at it from all these 5 perspectives. It's very important because once you get the idea, that's not the end of the story, just the beginning of the story. From there, all these interesting things start happening, and we need to adequately prepare ourselves to make the best of the idea from all these perspectives. This is very important. So the first one, the 5 skills for coming up with the disruptive ideas, is half the story. But this is the other half of the story, which is that you take the idea to the market by learning and practicing these 5 skills. This is very important, friends. Of course, you have to keep jumbling all these things all the time at different stages of the product. That's why I have this cartoon to show that it's not serial, it's all parallel activity. It happens all through the life of the project. Actually, it happens all through. So finally, I've just given you 2 canvases where you can combine all the essential wisdom that's come out of this exercise and have it prominently displayed in your workspace. It becomes very easy. If somebody joins your team newly, you can very easily take them through and bring them to speed. Okay, there are only 2 canvases. The first one captures the innovation plot in terms of who is affected, what is the problem, so on and so forth. Then the 5 whys. And then the other one, the subsystem and supersystem, I want you to keep it as visual as possible. Use hand-drawn images, can look very crude, no problem. But don't use words, use pictures as much as possible. Keep it very visual. This is one canvas. The second one is basically your ideality, and then your create, and then your ranking of these things using desirability, feasibility, viability, and sustainability. Okay, so this captures, these 2 canvases capture the entire journey, right? From your opportunity analysis, problem formulation, to idea generation and idea prioritization. So it's just these 2 canvases, you'll be able to capture the entire story. And then it becomes very easy for you to induct anybody into your team at a later stage. And this also documents your own evolution of the whole idea, how it happened. And also, some ideas you might have dropped at that stage because certain things in the ecosystem were not ready. But at a later stage, when something gets ready, you can always go back and look at this chart and say, something which had a low rank, maybe now it may have a high rank because things have changed in the super system. So this allows you to go back at your idea collection and bring something back into the mainstream. All this is possible with just these 2 canvases. This one and this one. Very simple. So finally, I think I want to wrap up now and keep some time for questions. So we talked about tools and techniques, but there is something much deeper, something a lot more fundamental when it comes to making your idea work. The essential wisdom is captured here. Take up one idea, make that one idea your life. Think of it, dream of it, live on that idea. This is what Swami Vivekananda said. It needs that level of passion, that level of engagement to make the idea work. There is no other easy path. You may use all fancy tools and techniques, but what makes it really work is this dedication, the passion that you bring to make this idea work. This becomes an intrinsic source of motivation because when you try ideas, so many ideas will fail. So that needs to be a strong intrinsic motivation to make you go back and try the next idea. And it is this kind of dedication that helps you to reach there. So it's the innovation journey is a tough journey, and you need this to really reach the destination. This actually summarizes the essential wisdom that you need to have when you start on your innovation journey. This is not the end of our discussion. I'm always available to each one of you. I've given my email and also my blog, Innovation Flow, and we can always stay connected. At any stage when you want to use me as a sounding board for your idea, or when you want to take my helps for using any of the tools, techniques that we talked about today, or you want to reach out to some expert in the industry and get a second opinion on your idea, I'd be most happy to connect you with these people. So I'm always available to each one of you here. So feel free, don't hesitate to reach me for anything. Sure. So with this, I want to wrap up and take any more questions that you may have. Sure.
Shankar, we'll go to the questions, but before that, a couple
Yes.
of quick comments.
Yes.
One is, of course, the first session was about primarily looking at the need identification, and we refused to talk about solutions, okay, in that session, right? And today's session has taken us to ideation and over to actually coming up with inventive problem solving solutions, essentially, which are inventive at the end of it, right? So I just want to tell the audience that there is a while we will be moving ahead to the next phase, there is one other part of the story which we have planned now, which is called solution engineering with Dr. Chintan Vaishnav and Dr. Nevan Hanumara will be talking through. This will come a little later, and I thought that is a good time to do it, because even after you do all of this and get to the value proposition, there are very often we find that you have to go back and reposition your ideas for different products and different markets very often. Okay, so just keep that in mind as well. So that, I think, I will just, for the information of everybody out here. Now, a couple of other things as well. You have you said that you will provide those templates, and those will be available.
Yes.
Through
Yes.
Anmol will set it up. I can tell you that those templates are quite useful, and it's up to you to use it, of course, and to chalk it out. It is up to you to also build on it as we go along. So now let me just go over to a little bit of questions. Can you do
Sure.
has a question about, can you explain a little bit about the magician role that you talked about in the last
Sure.
I think they haven't got the meaning of it. So maybe you can explain,
Yes.
what did you mean when you said that you need to sometimes play the role of a magician?
Sure. Sure. So you're developing a new product, and then you need to have a fair understanding that in the absence of your product, how the customer is currently solving this problem, how is he managing currently, and then how much he is paying for it. So today, maybe his problem is not fully solved, partially solved, but he is spending only, say, 10 rupees for that product. And you are going to come up with a product which fully solves his problem. But if your product is going to cost 100 rupees, maybe he may not be ready to pay for it, because his reference is the 10 rupees that he is currently spending. So maybe that gives you a reference to say what is acceptable from the customer perspective. Of course, you can explain to him the additional value that you are creating, and then you can convince him to pay a little more than what he's doing. But it cannot be very different from what is out there. So once you figure out that the customer is currently paying only 10 rupees, and at best he can stretch to 20 rupees, now you have to go back to your process, because your process currently is making the product cost 100 rupees. So you have to think of splitting it into a few problems that you need to solve so that you can bring it from 100 to 20. So that's what I mean by magician. It allows you to actually define certain problems that you have to solve so that the end product is acceptable for the customer.
Sure. Are you able to hear me, Shankar?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I seem to have a bad line, so forgive me. But
Yeah.
there's a question about the orient phase. In the orient phase,
Yes.
how do you estimate viability, economic viability, when you are at an idea stage before you have even built a prototype?
No, I couldn't hear you.
Sorry, Shankar, can you hear me now?
And now I can hear. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Can you repeat? Yes.
The question is, in the Orient phase, how do you estimate the economic viability when you're at an idea stage before you have even built a prototype?
Agree. So, friends, you should always start with customer desirability. First, crack that. Make sure that the customer desires what you are developing. Then worry about the third is economic viability, which is whether you'll be able to bring it to the right price point and make it profitable for you. The sequence is important because if the customer desires, there is still a way in which you can make it feasible and viable. Same way, if it is feasible, maybe initially it's not viable, but over time you'll figure out a way to make it viable also. But the sequencing is important. First, you should make sure that it is desirable for the customer, that there is absolutely no compromise on that. You cannot afford to go wrong there. But next, feasible, because you are a good technical person, you are adequately trained, and the technology is also continuously evolving. So sooner or later, you will make it technically feasible. Viability is more on the business models that you come up with, because the new technology cannot work best with the old business model. So you need some new business models also to go along with the new technologies. So viability comes third. Okay. So you need not have a very precise idea of viability to start with. You just focus on the desirability, then focus on the feasibility. By the time you come to viability, by the time you would have enough information to make a fairly precise guess on that. But don't worry about viability to start with. But one thing you cannot ignore is the customer desirability. That you have to do a very thorough exercise and make sure that what you are developing is desirable for the customer.
Yeah, thank you, Shankar. There's a question also on this on the strategy of elimination. Okay. So here again, can you comment on how IP would work out? Is the question. Okay.
IP would definitely.
Anmol?
Yes, I think we lost.
Lost
Yeah, he's dropped off.
Okay, so I think it was the signal that was a problem. So maybe I can comment on it by the time he gets back, and you can help him get back, please.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the fact that you eliminate something doesn't have a negative impact on IP as long as there is a result which is not so obvious. Okay, that's all that one can say. So whenever we look at patents and filing IP on such ideas, we ask the question for novelty. A good way to think about it is that you can think of, say, you say that the know-how involved, say, putting A and B together, and because of that I had a consequence C, and it is surprising that the consequence C happened. And if the idea in patents is not to necessarily try to explain why C happened, but how it was not necessarily aligned with whatever people thought in the field at that time, right? So it is possible via elimination to even when you eliminate some part of the idea, you can still create IP in a given idea as well. Okay. How are we doing? Any luck getting Shankar back?
So he's joining back in a moment.
Okay, great. Because I think the next question is on ideality. In the meantime, may I request people to please fill up the feedback form. It's quite important. It is something which we use, and we'll be sharing with you the results as well as with the faculty members after anonymization, so that they can improve their own presentations for future as well. Okay. Okay. I think, Shankar, are you back?
He's
I am
back.
back, Premnath.
Okay,
Yes.
Shankar, I've
Sorry.
tried to answer that question, so maybe you can take the next question. Is that okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the ideality equation, should we get all the clusters of ideas, go through it, or just the filtered ideas?
The ideality equation, the way I would use the ideality equation is to define the problems itself. See, I'm talking about the three ways in which we can come up with a superior product. What I said is to improve the useful function. The second direction is to reduce the harmful function. The third is to reduce the cost. So I will use the ideality equation more to select the problems that I want to solve rather than at a idea comparison or idea prioritization stage. I'll use it for defining the problems itself. That's how I will use ideality.
Yeah. Sorry, I just lost the.
Yes.
Yeah. Mukta, just hold on.
Yes.
Okay. So there's
So
another.
end of the day, ideality just gives you the direction that things are going to continuously improve over time. So there will be more useful features, less harmful features, and it's going to cost less. So it just allows you to define what are the three kinds of problems you can solve to come up with a superior product. That's what it is all about.
Okay, so this is a more generic question,
Yes.
which is how to suffice or how to manage the pressure to come up with the idea, especially within the time limits or within limitations of your teams.
Yes. See, quantity helps actually keep on generating lots of ideas. Some could be bad ideas, some could be really lousy ideas, doesn't matter. Just keep generating. Just you'll become better and better at it. There is no easier way other than just keep practicing it. So there is nothing like you'll directly get the best ideas. That will never happen. Even for the best people who have been generating a lot of good ideas over time, they also handle a lot of junk ideas. It's the very nature of ideation itself that you generate 100 ideas, maybe 10 ideas are impactful ones. Other 90 are not useful, but they are necessary. Without that 90, you will never get this 10. So it's a part of the process. There is no way to avoid that. So don't hesitate. Just go ahead and generate ideas and capture all the ideas. That's no other easier way. And it's part of the process to get the junk ideas along with the good ones. There is, you cannot avoid that.
Yeah, and perhaps another interesting thought is that it's very difficult to sometimes predict which is the best idea, right? So you have to
Correct. It's an iterative. What starts as a bad idea may slowly evolve and become a good idea, and things also change around. So it's a very iterative process, and it's quite non-linear also. Slowly it will evolve. Suddenly it may shoot up and become a good idea overnight. So be open to all those possibilities.
Yeah. Shankar, this is, of course, a question which you must be familiar with. You're an ISC Bangalore alum as well. In deep science based startups, we're working on technology areas which is likely to have multiple products or applications. How do we determine the customer? It may become a huge exercise if we start doing it for all possible applications and products. You want to comment on that? Basically, let's say that there is a platform technology like say graphene, okay, or a new semiconductor or whatever it is. Now that's how some of the deep science startups get started, right, with sort of a technology push kind of.
Sure, sure.
So how does one go about it there? Are we sort of doing this exercise for all kinds of products and applications, or is there a better way?
So let me say something and then you could add to it, Dr. Premnath. You have a lot more experience doing this. You could add. But what I want to say is it will not be an exhaustive exercise, but at least one application you have to take and go deep and also talk to potential customers and understand what are their pain points. You should, if not all the application, at least one, you should do a very thorough job, go as deep as possible and do it. Not for anything else, but for the fact that this exercise will allow you to go back and refine your idea. At the end of this exercise, your idea will be much, much better than what you started with. Although you did for only one application, you did not do for multiple, you did for only one. But the effect of it is to vastly improve the quality of your idea. So that tomorrow when you take it for other applications also, it's going to benefit because now you have a much, much better idea. So what I'm telling is you need not be exhaustive, but pick one application. Maybe the best or the worst application doesn't matter. Pick one application to go as deep as possible and talk to as many potential users as possible. Get all those insights because that will help you to improve the quality of the idea itself. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah. So Shankar, I agree with you that you should at least do it for one, and usually you look for the one which has the highest sort of value and has a decent product market fit, right? As a niche application to look at. But before that, I just wanted to, Tulsi asked this question, I wanted to point out a couple of points. The first thing is, many scientists are of the opinion that if they have a killer technology, everything else will work out. So that mindset has to be changed first, right? As Shankar said, the customer cares about the user experience and doesn't care about the technology. You might have whatever technology, it doesn't matter as long as it doesn't make an impact in terms of applications at the end of the day. So there'll be at least one application where if the person is saying there are 10 applications, very often we hear people who come and say, oh, this is a killer thing, it's going to change the world, and these are all these 100 applications. And so I ask them, forget about 100, tell me one. Okay, and that one, let's do the homework for it, right, in terms of what exactly it does and what user experience it is really going to improve for the customer, right? So that I think really works well, and you'll learn more about it along the way. I don't want to spend too much time on this. So here's another question, Shankar.
Sure.
Do I serve only a defensive role? Okay, this seems like an IP question, may not necessarily, but anyway, you can let me go through it. Does IP serve only a defensive role that's prevent other folks from copying our ideas and methods and offer legal protection for the same? When is it better to keep your innovation under wraps as know-how instead of IP? Okay, so this is an IP strategy.
Sure. Yeah. So sometimes you may be tempted to keep it under wraps and say that I'll keep it a secret, because when you're filing a patent, basically you have to describe what you are doing and how you are doing. You have to share the information. So if you don't want to do that and just keep it secret, there is a risk that you are taking. Okay, in the sense, if somebody else comes up with the same idea by their own independent way, and then they go ahead and patent it, and they get the patent granted, they can block you from practicing your idea because they got it independently and they have got a patent on it. So that's the only risk you are running if you're not filing a patent and just keeping it as a secret and running it. But if you're so confident that nobody can crack it, then you can keep it as a secret, no problem. But if there is a chance that somebody else can also independently come up with the same idea, then if they go ahead and patent it, then it will be a problem for you because they can block you from practicing it. So that's a risk that you are taking by doing it.
There's more to that's a very good point. There's more to it, including the fact that IP can be used as a tactical tool, as an offensive tool, and all that. And Shankar can give you a long lecture on that, but I think we'll save it for another day. Okay. I'm just trying to see if I can see. Yes. User experience. How do you integrate changing behaviors or diverse psychologies in ideation process?
Sure. See, we do something called the persona, means different types of customers. What are their likes and dislikes? What is their typical life like? This is all part of the what we call as a design thinking, inciting exercise. Spend a lot of time with the customers to understand what is their typical life like, what they like, what they don't like, what they see value, what they are ready to pay for. So all this is very carefully captured. And then when we prioritize the ideas to say whether the customer will desire it or not, we are looking at multiple types of customers to say this customer may like it, this customer may not like it. So all this mapping is done in a very careful way to see which features will appeal for which segment of customers. Especially with cars, you can imagine how extensive this exercise would be, because there are so many different types of segments. Like somebody wants a very tough looking vehicle. Somebody wants a vehicle which gives very high fuel efficiency. Somebody wants a vehicle which gives maximum safety, but doesn't care for fuel efficiency or anything. There are so many priorities that each customer segments may have. And one has to prioritize the product features in such a way that you are able to cater to the needs of all these customers. Different segments, you may have many variants of the product. So end of the day, you're not going to the market with one product. You're going to have multiple variants so that you'll be able to offer different features in this to cater to the needs of different segments of customers. So all this starts with your ability to observe the customers and build those persona, the profile of the customers during the ideation stage itself. Before even you start solving the problem, you're going to capture all these things. That becomes very valuable information for you to come up with variants of your product at the end of the cycle.
Okay. I think we are now at the close. Shankar, thank you so much for taking time out.
Sure.
I just want to alert the audience that Shankar has taken us till the point of ideation, shortlisting ideas, and so on. In the solution engineering one, which will come up on 5th July, we will go from there to functional requirements to engineering requirements. Okay, and that is some of the techniques from MIT's medical devices course, which you will learn as well. But coming up next is a process of, now that you have an idea and you're building your technology, how do you systematically de-risk it? And that's what Hiran is going to talk about. You're also going to start looking at value propositions of those technologies. And as you develop proof of concepts, prototypes, you're trying to test and demonstrate not only value, not only the technical claims, but also the value claims of what you are going to deliver to the customer. So that is the next phase that we are going to go into. So with that, please join me in thanking Shankar for this excellent talk, and also for sharing his methods, tools, techniques. In fact, for me, the first time I heard some of these and some aspects of it in an MNC company, for me it was a revelation that they were using all of this internally, and nobody was using it externally. Shankar has been training innovators now for many years now with these tools, including at Venture Center, and we are grateful for him for sharing these methods, which I think shed new light on how one could think about some of these things. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thanks, Dr. Premnath. Thank you so much. Sure.
Yeah. Final words from Anmol or Mugdha, administrative request, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Shankar, for your session. A few administrative announcements. Please fill up the feedback link, because as you know, this is taken as an attendance against this session, which is important for successful completion of this course. Also, a gentle reminder to sign in the code of conduct document, which my colleague Anmol must have sent to you. So please do it at the earliest by 12 noon tomorrow. Anmol, anything to add from your end?
No, Mugdha, that's it. Thank you so much, Dr. Shankar, as well.
Thanks a lot. Okay, bye-bye. Bye, everybody.
Thanks. Take care. Bye.